That madman. Oh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, 'tis I, Michael A. Graham, aka the Multi-Voice. I have many voices, but one opinion. And today, it is still another Multi-Voice-Oween. And today, I decided this is going to be like the last time that I'm going to be, reviewing Multi-Voice-Oween, but I'm not gonna stop from there because I'm sure there's gonna be some other horror-themed movies I'm probably gonna review in November and probably December. Start doing some Christmas stuff. Of course, I don't know what kind of Christmas stuff I'm gonna be reviewing, so I don't know. But anyway, folks, there's a certain movie that I never tackled, and I think it's time for me to talk about it right now. But one thing I would like to ask you: do you read Sutter Kane? what what quote was that from is, of course, this one horror movie that I'm reviewing to you today, which is called In the Mouth of Madness, made in 1994. And it's one of the legendary John Carpenter's movie. John Carpenter wanted to do a movie that kind of tackles in the whole theme of the Lovecraftian stories. And you know Lovecraft, legendary H.P. Lovecraft. And I know some of you are going to be telling me that he might be racist, but actually he just had a phobia towards different people. So I don't even know if he's racist or not. But one thing I do know, a lot of people always loves his books and his fear of the unknown, and also his iconic character of all, Cthulhu. So, so pretty much, this movie that John Carpenter was working on, he wanted to do a Lovecraftian theme of a movie. And of course, I know that the title, In the Mouth of Madness, it's sort of referencing one of H.P. Lovecraft's stories, At the Mountain of Madness. Which, one thing I'm very familiar about that story, about a bunch of explorers who decided to go into the Arctic, and they found some ancient ruins in the middle of the Arctic, and discovered that it had some of the ruins are actually a place beyond our knowledge, and it's overrun by Lovecraftian creatures. And when they got further, they saw a big, hideous Lovecraftian monster. And turns out there's another monster in the deeper side of the mountains, or the deeper in the ruins, that even the monster they encountered is afraid of. So look up the In the Mountain of Madness, because it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting story. Hell, I've heard that Guillermo del Toro is making his version of that movie. He's taking that book and making his version because Guillermo del Toro is a big fan of Lovecraftian. He's a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft. Anyway, the story starts out. There's a guy who goes by the name of Sippenstein, played by John Glover, bringing his new patient over to his asylum. And that new patient, his name is John Trent, played by one of our talented New Zealand actors, Sam Neill. And one thing, John Carpenter do put some humor into his movies, because Sam Neill kicked one of the interns in the balls, and when they locked him up, he says, "Sorry about the balls! It was a clear shot!" Okay, that was funny. But anyway, he kept screaming and yelling, saying I'm not crazy, and he starts hallucinating. thinking that there's somebody in the room with him, in the padded room of his. And then another doctor showed up who goes by the name of Dr. Rin, Dr. Rin, played by the late, great David Warner. You know, thinking about David Warner, I mean, did you know when they were doing Nightmare on Elm Street, they wanted David Warner to play Freddy Krueger, but instead gave the part to Robert Englund? Gee, if Robert Englund did not get that part as Freddy Krueger, I would imagine how David Warner would have been as Freddy Krueger. Welcome to my world, bitch! Ha 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 ha! I mean, he does have a good sense of humor. But anyway, Dr. Rin, he was a therapist who's trying to talk to John Trent in order to help him get out of that insane asylum. And he wants to know his story. So now he's about ready to know the story because, as it turns out, he was actually an insurance investigator. And he took down this one person who was declaring an insurance fraud. And not only that his husband and wife was planning to burn his warehouse, turns out he had a little something on the side, a girlfriend. And then from out of nowhere, this max-wielding maniac busts through the window, stares at John, and says, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" And then about ready to wave his axe at him until two officers shot him, gun him down. And John thought this was all just a publicity stunt because he was sent by the publishing company because there's a head publisher who wants to talk to him. And the head publisher, his name is Jackson Hargrove, played by the legendary, late, great Charlton Heston. At least he doesn't say, "Get your paws off me, you damn dirty apes! Soylent Green's people!" Sorry, when it comes to Charlton Heston, I just like doing references from his movies. But anyway, Charlton Heston, he's a he's a head of the book company, and he said that one of his best writers, who goes by the name of Sutter Kane, who wrote all these anthology horror stories, he's waiting for his last book to show up so he can publish it. But it turns out that the author had disappeared and doesn't even know where he's at. So he hired John to find him. And of course, he has his assistant named Linda Stiles, played by the lovely Julia Carmen, to journey with him. And of course, Linda said, Sutter Kane's books is so good, you can forget about Stephen King. I don't know. The only way people can forget about Stephen King if R.L. Stine and J.K. Rowling starts jumping in. But anyway, John decided to collect all these Sutter Kane books that's been out in stores. And I love the covers. And I know these books are, just props for the movie. But I do love the covers. I mean, they just remind me of the novels back in the 90s. Yeah, I'm old. I'm in my 40s, okay? So I remember things in the 80s and 90s. I was born in 1985. But anyway, one thing I remember when I was a little kid is the horror books with these creepy covers. I mean, I love creepy book covers. I mean, heck, I even have one of them in my hand right now. I mean, You never find book covers this creepy anymore because I guess people were complaining over the covers, so now horror books these days become less creepy and less scary. But here's what I have right here. This is a book cover of The Necroscope. Now, if any of you are going to be asking me, have I ever read it? No. Because, like I said, I'm not much of a book reader. I mean, if I try to focus reading a book, I'll get distracted easily, and I also lose of where I was. Lost place of where I was on the books. So that's why I'm not a book reader. But one thing I would do, if I have this book on audiobook, I'll pay more attention to it. But one thing I also miss around the 90s is these pictures they have in these covers. I mean, as you can see here, I love the 90s horror books that has pictures inside the covers. And look what the cover has this time. Looks like my grandma on a bad day. And for those you are wondering what Necroscope is about, it's about a Necroscope. It's a vampire story, but it's more of a Lovecraftian vampire story because Necroscope is about this one guy who has the ability to communicate with the dead, and the dead people loves him because he's really friendly with them, he talks to them, he listens with them. I mean, most of the dead people rather hang out with him because he understands what they're saying and gets their stories, and sometimes he can copy their personality sometimes. But it turns out there's a necromancer. He reads, I mean, all the ghosts is afraid of that necromancer because he devours the bodies. I mean, just tears them apart to get information what they know. And it turns out this necroscope is in league with these parasitic vampires, so they're not exactly like Dracula type vampires or Varney the Vampire. Hell, they're not even Twilight, for God's sakes, so forget about Twilight! Twilight sucks! But these are the parasitic vampires. I mean, they have these worm-like vampires that get to your skin and they crawl inside your skin and takes over your body. Actually, come to think of it, these vampires are more like the vampires from the Strain. Now, I haven't seen the Strain series or even read their comics. Oh yeah, that's another thing you should know about me. I would rather get the graphic novel based from the book than get the book itself. So, if there's a graphic novel, I mean, I know they make comic books based in these books, but I'd rather get the graphic novel instead. I mean, have all the stories together. But rumor has it they're going to make a movie based from this, and I hope it turns out good and not as stupid as today with all the woke shit and everything. But enough about this. Let's get back to the other story, shall we? But anyway, John, he started reading Sutter Kane's books, and he keeps on having visions and nightmares. He sees an ugly maniac police officer beating up a victim, and then a whole group of lunatics, and of course that same axe-wielding maniac who asked him, does he read Sutter Kane, he gets surrounded and get axed to death while they kept telling him, he sees you. And as he woke up, he started ripping the covers, and he noticed there's red lines on those covers, so he cuts up the covers and put them all together like a puzzle. And it turns out that all these cover pieces, it's a map. So he knows where Sutter Kane is at. He's in New Hampshire, in a small town called Hobbs End. So, Linda and John decided to drive their car all the way to New Hampshire in order to find Sutter Kane. And they gone through a long drive, but Linda, she starts driving, and all the weird things starts happening. She thought she was driving on top of the clouds, and then all of a sudden, they're at Hobbs End. And when she's looking around the whole town, everything is just like Sutter Kane's books. I mean, the entire town are a part of his novels. And they book into a hotel room where they see Mrs. Pickman, played by Frances Bay. Some people remember her from the Twin Peaks series, but I know most of you remember her as Adam Sandler's mom. Ha 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 ha! Go! That's the only impression I can do with Adam Sandler. Ha ha! Go up! Quit staring at me, Swan! And here's one interesting thing. There is a church in the middle of the town, and believe it or not, that is a church in on from another state, which kind of escapes me, but it's a real church. If you ever go to that one town, the church is called the Cathedral of Transfiguration. It's an abandoned church, but people use that church as a part of the scene in the movie. And then all of a sudden, there was a whole bunch of rednecks with their shotguns riding their cars right in front of that church and says, "Where is my son?" And out comes this little boy, and that redneck was like, "My Johnny boy." And then the door kept going open and shutting, open and shutting, open and shutting, open and shutting, until there's Sutter Kane, played by Janskrid Pashanau. Proschanau. Like I said, I can't pronounce their name right, and he's a German actor. But he sent a bunch of his dogs and attacked the rednecks. And of course, all the weird things keeps happening while John, he's being like, "This is reality. Book cannot be real. This is not real. This is all a stage." I mean, they're just taking things from Sutter Kane's book to make it like it's really existing. This is all an act. But Linda, on the other hand, she thinks this is more to it than that. And they see a bunch of kids that looks sort of deranged, and one of the kids say, "Are you my mommy? Today's mommy's day." And it turns out that she met Sutter Kane, and Sutter Kane finished his final book and had her look through his book, and that's when she went. I mean, she was just long gone. And then when she showed up, John starts noticing something's off with her. I mean, she's not acting like herself. And as he went downstairs, he even started noticing that Miss Pickman starts having all tentacles and start chopping up her husband, who is handcuffed to her ankle. So now John decided to leave the town, but every time he tries to leave town, he keeps going back to the town. Every time he leaves, he goes back, leaves, goes back. He's stuck in this town. And then he ends up in Sutter Kane's place. And Sutter Kane wants John to do something for him. He wants him to send his book to the publisher and have it published. And it turns out that Sutter Kane, he was in league with these Lovecraftian monsters from another world, and he wants his creatures to take over the world. And the only way to do that is to publish his final book, so the whole world can go completely insane. and crazy. And as Sutter Kane just sort of ripped his face open, he becomes like a page in a book. He ripped a hole in front of Sam, right in front of John, while Linda starts reading the book about what he's doing and what the creatures is doing. Out come the monster, so John has to run. He has to run before the creatures start chasing after him. And I gotta say, this is the best effect they've done. Look at these creatures here. These creatures are definitely something from the Lovecraftian stories. This is something that they would have done even today, because the hell with CGI. Doing these puppetry and electronic special effects, they are great. And I think movies these days, we need to quit using CGI and start using these things. But anyway, John collapsed, and the monster surrounded him, and then all of a sudden, he's in the middle of nowhere. And a young paperboy showed up, which it turns out to be young Hayden Christensen, before he becomes Anakin in Star Wars. He booked himself a hotel room, and the hotel clerk says, "We got a package for you." And he says, "I didn't tell anybody where I'm at." And he said, "Well, this showed up." So he went all the way back to New York, and he met Jackson, aka Charlton Heston. He kept asking him, "Have you ever read the books yourself?" And he was like, "No, I don't bother reading them. I just publish them." And of course he said, "What about Linda?" And he said, "Linda? You send me a girl with me. Her name was Linda." And he said, "Last time I remember it, you went on your own. And you sent me this book that I finally had it published. This needs to stop. This needs to stop, because people are going crazy, and it's turning everybody into monsters." And he doesn't believe him. And he says, "Well, the only way to stop them if they stop reading it." And of course, he said, "Well, I'm afraid it's too late. There's a movie coming next month. They're finally making a movie based from his book." And out comes this book, In the Mouth of Madness. And everybody started reading the book, and he started seeing everybody just going crazy over the book. And he even met this one kid, his eyes are getting all weirded out, and even blood tear coming down. And Sam Neill did the unthinkable, and that's why he ended up in a sanitarium. He grabbed an axe and chopped one of the fans with the axe. And now he ends up in the insane asylum. So now, Dr. Wren, David Warner's character, he don't know if he is crazy or not. It seems so real and so believable that he wants to know about the Sutter Kane books and everything. And even Sapernstein, he says, "Well, do you read Sutter Kane?" No, I don't believe he read Sutter Kane. He did read the Necronomicon, another Lovecraftian movie that David Warner appeared in, the Necronomicon. But anyway, here's the ending. John discovered there's a lot of screams going on outside, and then all of a sudden he's finally free. And the whole hospital is covered with blood and scratch marks. Turns out everybody in the hospital kept going crazy and kept mutilating other people. And even he's hearing the radio reports. They have lost Los Angeles. Everybody kept changing and, getting all disfigured, and started killing, and went completely insane and started killing people. And then he went to a movie theater where it says, "In the Mouth of Madness," starring John Trent. And even he sees the poster. And of course, a little known fact, the poster up close shows John Carpenter's name on it, him directing it. So, one thing that John did, he sat in front of the movie theater, eating some popcorn, and then he sees his entire life from the beginning of this movie. And John, he left. I mean, he just sat in that theater watching himself, started laughing and crying at the same time. So it's apocalyptic ending. And that was the end of In the Mouth of Madness. Whew! Well, I don't know about you guys, but I have to say, it's definitely a love letter to H.P. Lovecraft and his work because his stories always involve things like this. Anyway, this is my review for the day. And if anybody likes my review of Into the Mouth of Madness, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe for more. And stay tuned, folks, because my audio adaptation of Madman is going to show up on Halloween. I have episode 1 done, and I'll be working on episode 2, trying to find some, trying to trying to receive some lines from other people, and even doing my lines for episode 2 and episode 3. So stay tuned, folks. Anyway, on the multi-voice review, I'm the multi-voice reviewer. I remember so I can jog your memory. And happy Halloween.